Why, hello there, friends. It's Emma here, the Bookish Princess, and we have Kate and Christy. I'm so excited for our live stream. This is really fun. I can't believe here we are at the end of summer.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yes.
It was 3 months ago that we talked. That is wild.
Yeah. Yes, we're missing Anne, unfortunately. She couldn't make it, but it was so fun to have her in the original. We'll have to have her fill us in on how her reading went as well. But yes.
And I was just thinking that when we did the live stream, I was not a cat owner at that point. And now I am.
Life epoch making events that happened this summer. Would tell us about your cat,
Truly.
Kate.
Well, she's just the most perfect cat to walk the face of the earth. What's that, Christy?
As every cat is.
I was just saying, both of you have such cute cat stories of how you came by your kittens.
Yes. Very similar. And my husband was like, it's not a financial priority for us right now. And the only thing that could have made him change his mind is a, tiny little kitten in a parking lot that was going to be squashed by the end of the day. And he's like, I can't sit here and just wait for this cat to
I saw one of those I saw one of those cat memes on Instagram that was like the cat distribution theory, and it says that like if the universe deems that you're a good person, it distributes a cat to you. Like you earned it. So you guys needed that kitten, and they sent it to you. Yeah, Cymbeline is sitting here. We'll see if she feels like gracing us with her presence. But hello, I am so technologically challenged sometimes. But here there are lots of live chat comments that I was missing. But so yes, hello to everyone. Hi, Elizabeth, Cat Lady, and Benny. Hi, Cammy. Megan. Hi,
I just realized I thought I commented to everybody, but I sent it to the private chat.
I was in the wrong chat stream. I was like, oh, I don't see anyone commenting. There's like a whole bunch of them. I'm so glad everyone's here. Yeah, so I'd love to hear. We'd love to hear from you guys as well in the chat about your thoughts of these books. I feel like some of the chat comments that we got on the original live stream definitely influenced what I ended up reading, and were very helpful. So, yes.
That is so cool.
All right, so we each have 10 books that we're going to share that were our top reads of the summer. And then at the end, we're going to take a look back at what our plans were and what we maybe didn't get to. But who wants to go first?
Shouldn't the host go first?
Okay, I'll start us off. Okay, I'm just going to pick up. I have my books are all like in a pile right next to me. But I did really enjoy Death Comes for the Archbishop by Willa Cather. This was one of the book club picks. I've enjoyed the book club so much. And I know, Kate, you have I started Christy for the September Kindred Spirit. But I don't know if you found this with your book club, but I feel like my book club has been helpful. Like when I'm in a reading lag, it's like, well, I know I'm going to read this to discuss it. So like it kind of helps pull you out that you have something to hold on to. But yeah, this was so good. I feel like it needs a different title because like only the very end is the Archbishop's death. Like most of it is his life in New Mexico and just, kind of taking over the diocese there, really sort of crafting a diocese out of this wild territory. And I just feel like Willa Cather does such a good job capturing the landscape and also the people and all the different kinds of people, the Native Americans, the Mexicans, the Americans, I believe these priests were from France. So there's like really a melting pot. And the 1800s and like the railroad is starting to come, like, there are these like changes happening in the world. And yeah, I just definitely so glad I finally got to this one. But yeah, definitely a highlight of the summer.
Yay.
Awesome.
That makes me so happy.
Kate, why don't you go next?
That would be a really cool field trip for you sometime, Emma, would be going to Willa Cather's house.
Totally. And or even just New Mexico in the book club, in our book club meeting. One of the members had been to New Mexico and like had pictures of some of the churches and had bought some like icons and some like pieces of art that were similar to what's mentioned in the book, and it was so cool. It made me feel like we need a Death Comes to the Archbishop inspired trip for sure.
Yes. Oh, a pilgrimage. Okay, well, the first one that I will talk about is The Cloister and the Hearth. This is a Victorian historical, the Victorians would call it historical romance, but now we hear that and it sounds like a different thing. So I think historical fiction. So I am curious, like, how did the title eventually change? And it's set in I think it's the 13th century in the Netherlands, and it is about Erasmus. Emma, have you heard of Erasmus?
Erasmus, yes, yeah.
Okay.
Oh gosh, didn't he write something?
Yeah. He's one of the.
I'm blanking. I think
he's a Catholic priest, and he was a famous because of the writings that he put out. But it's about the love story of his parents, and his father was a priest. So it's like, what is this going to be like? And how did this come about? Because so I went ahead. Oh yes, somebody asked, did he write a church history? And I think maybe that was one of the kind of famous, like really famous works that he wrote. So it was really a breath of fresh air as far as Victorian literature goes for such a different time setting. It was very challenging. I started it in April and I didn't finish it until just a couple weeks ago. But it was so worth the effort because now it just really made an impact on me. It's very much a traveling book, and I love that about it. You very much don't know how things are going to kind of come together. And I was pretty bereft at the end. Also, I had done some research on Wikipedia, which was a terrible mistake. So I was bracing myself for some things. So that was really beautiful. My first Charles read. I hadn't heard of anything else from him, and I can't remember how I heard about The Cloister and the Hearth, but that was really challenging, but very worth the time.
I love the title too. Like that sounds so fascinating.
It does. Just the title makes me want to read it.
Yeah, and there are some really cool illustrated editions out there. I didn't have access to any, but our friend Elizabeth Brink was in the chat. She actually ended up ordering a used copy, and she had no idea what it was going to look like. And then it got there, and she sent me some pictures, and it was illustrated beautifully. So,
all right, here we have hi Rainey.
Well, Christy,
and Danielle.
Yes.
Sharon. Sharon.
All right, my turn. Okay, so yeah, I guess I'll talk about A History of Korea. I should have it here because I actually own this one. A lot of my books that I read are library titles, but A History of Korea by Kyung-Moon Hwang it's basically what it sounds like. It's a history of Korea. It took me about 1.5 years to read because I was summarizing it, annotating it, and then I just really took extensive notes so that I could easily look back and remember everything. So, and I would say, I wouldn't necessarily say I would recommend it to a person who doesn't know anything about Korea and just wants to read a history of Korea. Like, it kind of skips around a lot, but honestly, I didn't know anything about Korea and I read it and loved it. So, and I feel like I learned a lot. So it's maybe a strange choice for a first pick, but because it was like arranged kind of according to a theme. Each chapter, he was trying to portray a certain period of Korean history, like by a theme. So he would like pull a certain incident in history and be like, this was characteristic of this time for these reasons. So yeah, I feel like it sticks with you better the way he writes it, even though it's not necessarily comprehensive. So I really loved it. It was amazing.
That sounds so fun.
That's awesome.
And that's great to like finish something. I feel like both of your books, it was like something that had gone on for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. Took a while, but it was worth it.
And you read so many Korean books. I was just starting to watch your review of the Band book. I need to go back and finish it. But like, I feel like that would be so fun to have read a good history since you're reading so many other Korean. It is such a fascinating culture. It's so fun to learn about.
It is. Everything about it I just find fascinating. Language, people, food, pop culture, history, politics. It's all interesting. None of it is boring.
And I have to say, too, I really find some kind of in the cultural commentary similarities between Victorian literature and Korean dramas, with kind of the overall positivity that's underlying, like you need to strive and work hard and be the best version of yourself that you can be. Very much not victim mentality, and also the honor culture, and kind of the social, the cost when you break the social framework. So it's really interesting to me.
That's so true. It's like, yeah, it's a really kind of stylized representation that I just feel like it's really similar to how Victorian, because obviously life for Victorians wasn't always what it looked like in the novels, but it was stylized in a way to make a point, you know. And I feel like K-dramas are the same. It's usually about the moral development of a character.
Yeah, it really is. Or like, a relationship that won't be approved by society, whether they have to count the cost, like, are they willing to do that? She is an older woman. She is 3 years older. Are you willing to go up against everyone objecting?
Yes. Oh, was there a cat?
There is a cat. She keeps wandering back and forth. Now she's like staring at herself in the mirror. Say hi.
I'm so
You're
beautiful.
too busy admiring yourself.
I shocked myself. How beautiful I am.
No, I'm sorry. You didn't pay me my ration of kibble to appear in this video, so. Yeah, you should. Where's your kitten, Kate?
It's crazy.
Molly, right?
Comes in here. What's that?
Molly is the cat's name, right? Is that right?
Tabby, and he'll step on the keyboard, and it will not go well.
All right, I have too many books here. I can't decide which one to go next. I think I'll go with this one. So, I did read The Long Winter by Laura Ingalls Wilder. This was not on my original the list that we made, but I was like thinking of putting it there because I had said in the live stream that I was thinking, oh, I should wait and read it in winter. And I'm pretty sure people said, oh no, don't do that. And I'm so glad that they gave me that advice because it is such a heavy winter, unsurprisingly, such a long winter. And I feel like it would be even more depressing to read it in actual winter. It was so nice to like be able to put it down and like go and soak in the sunshine and like, kind of take yourself out of that world, because her writing, I think, is so evocative. It's, a children's series, but like she does such a good job describing not only like the physical landscape, but like the emotional and kind of mental toll that it would take on you to be cooped up because there's this crazy snowstorm from like October to May practically. It's just blizzard after blizzard after blizzard. And like there's barely enough food. Oftentimes they move to town for this winter because they didn't want to stay out on their claim out on the prairie where they'd be alone. But even in town, it's like they're snowed in for days on end and you can't even see the houses. Like it's as if you're totally isolated. And yet I feel like, and this is like the sort of theme of all the Laura Ingalls Wilder books. It's like they go through these crazy things that you read and you're like, oh my gosh, like how did I read that when I was a kid and not feel so stressed out? But like, it's funny, when I was a kid, I read these and loved them and was like, oh, that's so exciting. That's so interesting. Like, they're so independent. Like, it's so cozy and by the fire and the bread and whereas now I read this and I'm like, oh my gosh. But like, I think that the Ingalls family does have this endurance and resilience that like, I totally took for granted as a kid. And now I'm just like in awe of their endurance and resilience, and even it's so amazing that even though the books are in a sense stressful and you totally feel what they felt. The just like listlessness of being cooped up for so long, and the worry of like almost running out of food, but like you also feel the warmth and the love and the like, the discipline and the hard work, and just such a beautiful book. I really have been loving rereading Laura Ingalls Wilder this year, because I remember loving it growing up, but like rereading it now, I like feel so appreciative that I read it growing up. I feel like it's helped form me maybe. So.
And I also thought when reading The Long Winter, and later on in the series when Almanzo is interested in Laura and she's not really reciprocating yet, I just feel like it's so awkward. Like, listen, I appreciate that you saved the whole village. I really, that means a lot to me, but I'm not interested.
I can't wait until because I just started. I don't think I have it here. I just started reading the next one in the series, Little Town on the Prairie, because Almanzo makes his first appearance in this one, and then in the next one he kind of makes some appearances, but I think it's the next one after that where it's really their courtship. But there's one part where Mary asks Laura, like, are you in love with him or his horses? And it's like but like if you read Farmer Boy, and like even like in Long Winter and in his other appearances, Almanzo loves his horses so much that like actually if she's in love with his horses, she is in love with Almanzo, because he and his horses are that close. And like, and actually in the see, I shouldn't be talking about the next book because I hear him talking about Long Winter, but in the Little Town on the Prairie, there's this awesome horse race on the 4th of July, and one of the like races is for pairs, like a team of 2 horses, and all of the young men who've entered have like found the lightest buggy they can find, so that the horses don't have to pull, because the men have to like drive them, so they're all in a buggy, but it's like the lightest buggy they can find. But Almanzo is too proud to ask to borrow a buggy, and so he uses his brother's like heavy, ridiculous, wagon, and but I just loved that scene, and I was like realizing like because I sometimes I'm like, oh, who's my fictional crush? Like I feel like there aren't a lot of men in literature that I'm like, oh yeah, that's it. But in that moment I was like, it's Almanzo. Like that is my kind of man, because he wins too. He wins the race, and like he doesn't even have a whip. He like whispers to the horses, and like I loved that.
That would be a fun live stream. Fictional crushes.
We should do a separate live stream of our top fictional crushes.
From the pictures that I've seen, he was very handsome too. Like he was a very handsome man. Now the portion in The Long Winter that haunted me is when Laura and her classmates are all trying to walk back when a blizzard suddenly starts. And at one point, the teachers leading them, and they're all walking just away from buildings. And it was because one student went back. He knew they were going the wrong way, and they got help. It's just awful. Oh, just to think about what could have happened.
So many scenes. It's just like they're saved by, it's amazing how dangerous it is, but how like brave they are, and they just take it in such a matter of fact way. Oh yeah, here we've got some comments. Yes, I was definitely glad I read it in summer. Oh, that would be a really fun audiobook. If it's a good audiobook, you'll have to let us know who narrates it, because that would be such a fun listen.
Emma, sorry, I'm so enthusiastic about the audiobooks. Cherry Jones is a Broadway actress, and they have pause fiddling like included in the audiobooks.
Wow.
Oh, I love that.
It's very good.
Oh yeah, Long Winter is such.
I should try those because I never read those. But sometimes having like a long running
you've never read Laura Ingalls Wilder?
I've never read.
Oh my gosh, you have to put it on the list for sure.
Okay. All right. I'm writing it down.
100%.
And she has this beautifully. It's like it is deceptively simple, her writing style, but there's a real elegance to it.
Definitely. Oh, hi, Terry. And yeah, the horses are such a great part of it.
Yes.
All right. Kate, is it your turn?
I I think so. So I will talk about a read aloud I did with the boys, and that is The Summer of the Monkeys. So it's by Wilson Rawls, who he also wrote Where the Red Fern Grows. And when I posted on Instagram about this, I got several messages like, is it super sad? Please let me know. And it's not anything like Where the Red Fern Grows. So there is a little boy, Jayberry, which my son and I were both saying, like, why did they have his name be Jayberry? He's like the main character. What a weird name. But and then he has a little sister, Daisy, and that summer there is a circus train that crashes and a whole train car full of monkeys breaks away. And so they have a ginormous reward that they'll give if you catch the monkeys. And so it's just this boy's summer spent trying to catch the monkeys because he wants a pony and a rifle. And he lives on a farm in the Ozarks. And so definitely that's something that would not be crazy for a kid to have in this time period. So it's really more a story about a family, and it's so moving. I cried so hard in the last couple of chapters. And it's just the very tight-knit relationship between the family that just makes it magical.
That sounds so good. I really wanted to find that on audio because Kevin loved the book about the dogs.
Yeah.
So I thought he would love this one, but I would have to actually read it to him, and I get car sick, so I don't think it would work. But maybe I could just read it to him.
Hopefully they'll come out with an audiobook.
That would be helpful.
That's true. I'm so glad that I did it as a read aloud and didn't read it independently, because that made me really savor it over a couple of months.
I might try that. I mean, we're just usually sitting home playing Oregon Trail together anyway, so why not read a book instead?
Love it. We should bring that back. Like, bring back reading. Yeah. Hey, for Victober, didn't, like, in Victorian times, that people were reading books aloud all the time.
It's so true. I guess now Christy.
Your turn. Sorry.
Christy up.
I'm taking notes again for
Thanks, Christy.
I don't know if it's really necessary, but I kind of want
to have the list. So. Yeah, for sure.
I want to know what were your favorite books of the summer, so I can read them too. Okay. Next, speaking of banned book club, so I was just mentioning watching this review. So good. So, Banned Book Club by Kim Hyun-suk is a graphic memoir. It's targeted towards teenagers, and it's set, I forget which year exactly it's set. So, I think it's maybe 89 or something like that. It's in like the 1980s, somewhere around there in South Korea. So, Korea had a series of military dictatorships and just all kinds of corruption in their politics while they were working towards democracy. So it's set a couple years before democracy, and it's really set at a college where students were protesting for democracy. And it was really the students who, generation after generation of students, would protest because the adults, as they became adults, would get worn into accepting the kind of corrupt politicians of the time. They would get massacred, into submission and stuff. And eventually they would just give up. But every generation of college students, they would hear about things that got covered up or, so there was Gwangju Uprising. I don't know if you guys have heard of that, but that was a massacre of peaceful protesters that was, that a military dictator in South Korea tried to cover up and say it was the communists that did it, but there was enough leaked accounts that the students of the 80s were finding out about these leaked accounts and finding out that the government lied to them. And so they were protesting, and it was really that generation of students that this graphic memoir is about. They are the ones who protested enough that eventually they did end up getting a democracy. So yeah, it's really like a love note to protesters in South Korea because they have many examples of they have needed protest literature to hold their government accountable because they're such a young democracy. So yeah, it's really an incredible story following the college students of the time and kind of the difficulties they were facing. And the book did get banned in high schools because there's some anti-police rhetoric, but the police were corrupt. So the anti-police rhetoric is actually true in this case. So yeah, I thought it was fantastic and great for kids because it's all about learning to think for yourself. So that's really the whole point of the book.
Wow.
Yeah. Super good.
Sounds so good. It's so fun to talk with both of you because I feel like Christy, I started watching that review, and Kate, I like screenshotted the cloister and the hearth when I saw it on your Instagram story. So now you guys are just making me want to read these all even more.
Yes.
No, that sounds just such a good thing for my kind of first world problems, to put them into perspective, and to not take any freedoms that we do have for granted.
Yes, I know. Sometimes it feels like our politics are overwhelming, but we're really pretty lucky here. Yay, Joanna!
Yes.
I think you'll love it. It is amazing, Elizabeth. It's amazing.
Oh, this is going back a bit, but that sounds so cool that the real fiddle is at a museum. Oh, I totally want to go there. Right. My cat is like forcing me out of my chair here. So there's not really room for me and the cat and the books, but we're gonna give this a try. All right, I think it's my turn. My next book is Sense and Sensibility, which I always feel vaguely guilty putting rereads on like top lists because I'm like, well, it's not the first. It's definitely not the first time I've read Sense and Sensibility, but like I feel like it was just like the book I needed to read at this moment, and like every time I reread Jane Austen, like I appreciate something or find some line that I hadn't noticed before. And with this one, I feel like in the past, like I've always kind of, I don't know, just been a little less enthusiastic about Sense and Sensibility because like with the heroes, especially like Willoughby gets so much page time and like Brandon gets so little, and like she doesn't end up with Willoughby. So it's just like a little bit depressing. But this time I feel like I saw it with brand new eyes because I was paying attention, especially Eleanor. When Eleanor finds out like when it's all going down, and I don't know if I should give spoiler warnings here, but you know, Eleanor at one point sums up Willoughby's character in such a succinct way, and she talks about how it was what was the line? Like it was not at all like a thing to be sad about. It was like a blessing from God, a deliverance the most real, I think was the line, that like the fact that she and Willoughby had broken up, because she said that like it had saved her from the worst and most irremediable of all evils, a connection for life to an unprincipled man. Which I was just like, wow. Jane Austen's like clarity, like when she hits it, she just like nails it. Like I feel like her it's like her words are like a sword that just exactly slices out the truth. And yeah, I just thought that was, I'd never really paid attention to that line before, and that made me kind of look at it with new eyes. And like I was noticing like little things about Colonel Brandon too, because you know, so many things. I feel like so much of Jane Austen's power is like how subtle she is. Like Brandon, we don't see a lot of him, but like everyone talks about him as a good man. But what at one point we're hearing about how he finds the woman he loved when he was young. They, you know, part ways, and like that woman kind of falls into disrepute. But later on, Brandon finds her in a poorhouse, and she's like, you know, close to death. But the reason he was at this poorhouse was that he was visiting an old servant. And like that is such a tiny throwaway kind of line, but like it just shows so clearly what a great guy Brandon is. That here, I mean, and especially contrasted to Willoughby, like, but here Brandon is taking the time to go visit a servant in a poorhouse, and then that leads him to rediscovering this woman and being able to help her daughter. So, yeah, just definitely a renewed appreciation. And Eleanor too is just like so, you know, so strong and does such a good job at like managing her grief and managing her pain under these difficult circumstances. So definitely a highlight of the summer.
That's not cheating at all to put a book that you love, because it's like always a different new experience, you know. So
It's true.
you still love it. That says a lot.
Yeah, and I think there is kind of, we're so saturated with new books being published. I think it's really lovely to become very well acquainted with your favorite books and to just continue coming back to them and yeah, just having a different angle maybe that you did before, and thinking about a certain character, or yeah, just I mean, Jane Austen really is those there's so many gems in her books that you just kind of end up noticing what you notice in one read through, and then later on you're like, how did I never notice this line? Yeah.
I love that we're rereaders.
Yes.
Because sometimes we do that when we're like
So
teenagers. We'll reread a lot, or kids. But anyway, sorry, go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah. There's a bit of a delay with my internet, so I'm sorry if I keep sounding like I'm interrupting.
No, I get it. Yeah.
Anne of Green Gables. I have been listening to the audiobook on the way to and from swim lessons with the boys, and it's only like a 17-minute drive. So we've been going through it very slowly. Typically in August is when I rewatch the Megan Fellows movies, but we weren't done yet. So I said to Peter, like, today, let's finish the audiobook so we can start it. We didn't. We got sidetracked with other things, but we only have about an hour left. The one thing that I really struggle with is how unrelenting Anne is and not forgiving Gilbert. It's like, come on. It is really painful, but I know good things are coming, and it's just, I'm astounded at how beautiful the language is. I'm like, I don't deserve to be reading this book. It's just too beautiful for me. And just the thawing of Marilla's heart that happens, and how it's like when Anne gets very swept up at one point and gives her a kiss on her cheek, and how it said something like, Marilla didn't realize how much she had been longing for a kiss from a little child on her cheek. Or from a child, because Anne isn't super little. But yeah, that just how Marilla had zero plans, on taking in a child and raising them. And it was going to be a boy, and just, it's so moving from start to finish. Matthew is still with us. So I am bracing myself for that.
Marilla's character development is one of my favorite things about that series.
It is so sweet. And like you're mentioning the writing, like it is so like, I love the like sort of, fairy dusted descriptions, and then the like hilarity of the Anne goofs, like right side by side. It's so good.
Yes. I have to say, the one scene that I prefer in the movie, which I know, sacrilege, is how they have the mouse in the custard happen when Miss Stacy comes over for dinner, and how everyone starts laughing, and then Anne says, I suppose it would be a romantic way to die for a mouse, and then it makes them laugh even more. I do love the execution of that in the movie.
It's always so fun when there's like one thing they do like slightly differently in the movie. Like it's almost like some scholar gave a little twist or a little sort of explication of this little scene of, like in Sense and Sensibility, the way they add that Shakespeare sonnet that like is so in the what's her name, the one of the adaptations, they add sonnet 16 or 116, and it fits so perfectly. You would think it was in the book, but it's not.
There were so many things like that. I just happened to have seen the Harry Potter books a lot because Kevin didn't discover them until after we were married, and I had already read them a million times and watched the movies a million times. But the movies had certain lines that I thought were in the books until we reread the books. Like Draco's, "I'm going to tell my father," like that was all the movies. That wasn't really in the books. But it's so characteristic,
Oh, here we go.
And my favorite. Oh yes, Daryl. I wholeheartedly. I love too when they're trying to find dates to the Yule Ball, and Ron has a light bulb moment. And he says, "Hermione, you're a girl," and she goes, "Well spotted, Ronald."
Spotted. Yes. So great. All right. It's my turn, is it? Yes. Okay. All right. Next. Oh gosh, so many of these are Korean. I'm sorry.
I love it. No, I love it.
That's just where I'm by. I'm kind of a country reader. I'll get kind of obsessed with the country and I'll read everything about that country. Yeah, so right now Korea is my country.
That's awesome.
So I just read K-Pop Confidential. I didn't write down the author, but that's a series that's supposed to be based on Blackpink and kind of how, like, the training that they went through. And my laptop's gonna die. So it really is interesting because the different labels put trainees through different things, I would say. Some of the training is really similar throughout all labels, but the training described in this book was like really just something. Some of it I'd never heard of before, like some of the diets they had the girls go on, like basically sweet potatoes was all you could eat, stuff like that, just like insane. Like, so, but I could see that, with some of the artists that they put out, how they might have been put through something like that. You can sort of tell, like, their body shapes and stuff. Anyways, it was fascinating. It wasn't all negative by any stretch. The nice thing about K-Pop Confidential is it was written by a man who is a K-pop fan. He's a fanatic. So you could tell he was having a lot of fun writing this, and he was coming at it from an angle of, I love K-pop, but there are some problems with the industry. So, I felt like I've read a lot of other books that were about K-pop, or I've tried to, and a lot of them didn't really hit because it just felt like it wasn't written by a fan. But this one you could tell was written by a fan, and he had a great appreciation for the artists and all the training they go through and stuff. So yeah, it was so fun. Definitely one of my favorites. I read it for K-Tropathon, and it gave me all the K-Tropathon vibes that I could have wanted. There was even a romance. Like, there was everything.
Wow.
Yeah.
Now, do they typically earn enough that once their fame fades, they'll be financially secure?
They keep it a little bit quiet how much the artists earn. I know some artists that you would think are doing really well are actually like in debt to their labels. So I think it depends a lot on what label you are signed with and the kind of terms that you get, because there are some really famous labels that have just been like suing. They're really famous artists that are suing the labels for like slave contracts, like 20-year contracts and stuff like that. So it really depends. Wow. Yeah, I think a lot of these kids don't necessarily, it's a gamble for them. They don't know if they're going to be famous. So they're just like, they'll take anything if it's a case of a steady career for the next 20 years, basically. So that's one of the things that needs some work, I would say, is probably. But some artists, you can tell they're wealthy because they move into these like areas of Seoul that are like mansions and stuff, and you're like, okay, this one's doing well, and they're probably gonna get other like modeling and acting jobs, and they get to be representatives for brands and stuff like that. So they do earn money off of that. That's outside of the actual music part. So I think that most of them are going to be okay,
Good. That's good. That's something that I would worry, kind of, when fame fades. Are they going to be okay?
Yeah. I mean, there's a high rate of suicide of K-pop idols too. So that there's more going on behind the scenes that we don't really know about. So I do worry about them too, and I pray for them because I hope they know God,
Yeah.
Oh, here, there's some fun comments here about Anne. This is such a fascinating thought that Marilla is really more the typical main character. That's so fun. Yeah, that Anne is.
That is interesting.
Anne transforms the others, but she herself is more constant.
That is true. I never thought about that.
Yeah, I know. I didn't either. I love it. Yeah.
Yeah, she just, it's funny. She still has kind of the very romantic, fanciful thoughts. She just doesn't necessarily verbalize them all as often. Towards the end of the book, Marilla says something, like, you aren't talking as much. She says, like, I'm just content to keep some thoughts to myself now.
Yes. She does mature. It's just she remains essentially still Anne.
All right. Next up, I have a P.G. Wodehouse. I did make it to Carry On Jeeves, which is a collection of short stories. It's mostly set in New York. So a lot of these are kind of like city stories. And this is unique because it has the first story, Jeeves Takes Charge, where Jeeves and Wooster first meet. And then it also has a story told from the perspective of Jeeves. So very, just like really kind of two kind of fascinating, unique stories. I had forgotten that in this first story, when Bertie Wooster and Jeeves meet, Bertie Wooster is kind of impecunious because, like, in all the other stories, Bertie's like he's when it comes to finances, he's good, which is kind of hilarious because, like, all the other characters around him are usually broke, and like that's the plot, is that they don't have money. But it's like in the very first story, Jeeves or Wooster is going to inherit from this uncle, but the uncle is still alive. I always Wodehouse was so like sort of wishy-washy with the like exact chronological timeline of things. But I'm not sure if we ever like hear of this uncle again. I kind of want to look it up. But yeah, it was super fun. I love, one of the things I always love is Jeeves's sartorial advice. Like, I kind of want to know how Jeeves would judge my outfits. Like, he like has such strong opinions, and he's like, and when in this one story, Bertie has to loan his apartment to a friend so that the friend can pretend he's doing well in New York. And so Bertie moves out into a hotel, and when Jeeves comes and like moves in his clothing, he's like so like reverent, like, oh, I've put our shirts here and I've laid out this tie, and this is the way he describes it is so entertaining. Yeah, just always a good time to pick up some Wodehouse.
Oh, there's actually a Frank Capra film that is a kind of has that plot where someone is not doing well, and then her daughter has lived overseas for a while, and she sends her a letter saying, I'm coming to visit you with my fiance. I'm so excited to see you again. And
are you still there, Kate?
It froze.
No, I think we might have. Oh.
She was back for a second.
Dude, I want to hear more about this movie.
I know.
That is exactly the plot. Oh, there you are. You're back. You froze for a minute.
Yeah, so I was just saying it's called A Pocket Full of Miracles, and I really like it.
That sounds so fun.
That is a cute title. A Pocket Full of Miracles.
Wodehouse is such a good comfort read when you just need some comfort.
You guys in the comments can let us know too your favorites of the summer.
Yes.
We want to hear about them.
I feel like Dream in the Garden. I'm not surprised to know that you are an Anne fan. That sounds very Anne approved. That username.
For sure.
Okay. Well, I will talk about The Labors of Hercules Beale, which is a middle grade book by Gary Schmidt. And he has written one of my all-time favorite middle grade books called The Wednesday Wars. And this book felt very similar in that it deals with really heavy topics like grief, but it does it in a way that children can process. So it's not too heavy for me. And this boy, I think about a year prior to when the book starts, his parents have passed away. And he and his brother live on Cape Cod, which is very picturesque for a book to be set on. And his brother is now running the family plant nursery. And so they're trying to survive that way. And he goes to a new school, and in one of the classes, they're all assigned different things to do with mythology. And so he has to see some parallels in his life between the 12 labors that Hercules achieved. And it's just such a meaningful book. And I'll just do a little plug. In December, we're reading The Wednesday Wars. And it's just so heartfelt. And I love, there's always like quirky characters. Like they live next door to a sculptor. And he finds a stray cat in that, although that stray cat is not as cute as Tabby or Cymbeline. He calls it Pirate Cat because it's a little wonky. But it's a very, very, just delightful book. And I'm really glad that I made time for it.
We've got some favorites from the series here. Becoming Mrs. Lewis. That sounds so cool. I'd love to read more about, was her name Joy? I keep meaning to look up more about her.
Yeah, Joy.
Everything Sad is Untrue.
That
Little
was
Women.
a great book. Becoming Mrs.
A
Lewis.
Severe Mercy. Oh my goodness. That has some C.S. Lewis in it. And it was a friend of his who lost his wife. And so, oh my goodness. Oh, so it's their love story, but he's writing their love story while he's in the throes of grief. And it's so beautiful. It's a really good spiritual memoir.
I feel like you recommended that to me, Kate, and now I need to read this.
I'll keep annoying, like I will not stop talking about it.
Please do. Yeah, please keep talking about it.
Got some Dostoevsky.
Yes.
Belton Estate.
Yes.
Oh, that's so good. We have another Woodhouse fan.
Yes.
Oh, Nuna Gary Schmidt. Excited for the Wednesday one.
Yay.
Oh, everything. Yeah, I haven't read that one. Everything Sad is Untrue. I feel like I've read that.
I keep hearing such wonderful things about it.
Which one? Anne-Marie,
Everything Sad is Untrue.
Oh. I don't know if I've heard of that one. Wow. I need to write it down.
It's I think it's a middle grade memoir. He and his mom immigrate to America. Yeah.
Nice. All right.
I think it's from
really
a Middle Eastern country.
What?
Oh, I think they immigrate from a Middle Eastern country. I think they're Christian refugees from a Middle Eastern country. That's what I think it is.
Oh.
Yeah.
That sounds amazing. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Well, my next one that I had written down was actually the Belton Estate. So thank you.
Perfect timing.
I have it written down too. Tell me about the Belton Estate. That is so good.
Yes, it really was.
And we had a lot of love because we had Rainy, and then lots of love for the. Is this Trollope Thackeray, or who's the author again?
Yeah, Trollope.
Nice.
So, Christy, I loved hearing you talk about it. Tell people why they should read the Belton Estate.
Okay, so the Belton Estate is following a woman named Clara who has been told she might receive, various supports for her life, like that she will come into some money. And she just sort of figures out that that's not going to happen. And she's like, that's okay. I can take care of myself. I would rather work. Like, she's just I feel like she's such a strong heroine, and she almost reminds me of a sensation novel heroine, even though the plot isn't like a sensation novel plot of the book. she's just so stubborn and like herself. And yeah, I don't know. I really loved Clara. A lot of people had problems with her. So what's going on with Clara is her brother wastes all the money and that could be hers, and basically she is now living on an impoverished estate with her father. And the estate, when her father dies, is going to go to a cousin named Will Belton, who is like the enemy of the brother who dies. So of course, when Will shows up, it becomes a romance, but she's already in love with someone else. And it was so refreshing because one of the main like characters, the love interests, was a farmer, and one of them was a gentleman. And that was really interesting to me. I'd never seen that in a Victorian novel. And I loved all of their interactions between Clara and the farmer.
Oh, like here, so we got nomination of Will Belton as fictional crush.
Yes.
So
no, it's because he was such a Teddy Roosevelt. Like he's like physically active. He goes out and he like checks on his estate and sees that everything, everything is looking okay. He cleans up good. He doesn't look, he's not a refined city gentleman, but he cleans up. And also he's very sensitive and tenderhearted. And I was very swoony about Will Belton.
Yes. Me too, because I felt like he's like you mentioned this in our chat, he's a very like manly man. And that's something I really appreciate because I also married a manly man. And I just feel like they don't get that much representation in the literature I tend to read. It tends to not be about manly men. And I'm just like, wow, this is refreshing.
Well, and I could go off on a whole rant, but I think that the Victorian ideal of masculinity was a very fragile masculinity. And so it had to be, you couldn't experience any emotion. And so therefore you had to tamp it all down. That was what being masculine was. And I too married a masculine man. And like he started now when he lifts weights between sets, he listens to Gregorian chants and like does his Bible reading.
Wow.
So it's very like, what is this? Like, this doesn't go with the framework of what masculine is. So yeah, like I said, that's why I think Teddy Roosevelt is what people should be striving for. Like he was such a sweet father. But he also loved to like go on trips and in the great outdoors and do horseback riding. So I do think that Will Belton, his character, is really a breath of fresh air. And that's why like Roger Hanley and Wives and Daughters, often they are kind of like, they don't do much. They, unless the exception is if they're a curate. I feel like, all right, you're doing stuff.
Yes. Exactly. These are gentlemen who really worked for a living.
Truly, yes.
So that was a really refreshing read.
Yes. Well, we can now we've gushed a ton. So I'm interested in hearing, Emma, about your next favorite.
Yeah. All right. Here, real quick, we'll put these in here. We've got some more favorites from the chat. Age of Innocence, Edith Wharton. I think I'm going to be visiting Edith Wharton's home, The Mount, this fall. I'm hoping to do that. And so I feel like I need to read at Edith Wharton this fall. I've got to pick which one. This sounds Stevenson, Woodhouse. I feel like I know Rosamund Pilcher. What's one of? I don't think I've read that.
So she was like the 90s, I'd say was her heyday. And it's kind of just like rich people living in beautiful houses in England and Scotland. And
can't go wrong with that. That sounds perfect.
Although actually sometimes then they'll be knocked down several pegs. Something crazy happens with their finances. But they're very character driven and lots of cozy domestic details.
This Marmee, I don't know if it was this book exactly, but I remember I read a biography of Louisa May Alcott's mother that was so fascinating. She was such a
oh wow.
Oh, another The Custom of the Country. That one, I read that one. That one was like, parts of it were rough. Although, you know what, Edith Wharton, it's like dead New York society. So it's just It's like gorgeous writing and kind of dead. Like,
It's like it
oh,
really does feel very Hollywood.
yeah, another film.
Do it. Go for it.
I know. I'm feeling like I should do that. All right, what have I got
You
here?
will not regret it.
It's such a mood.
It is.
And I just read it on audiobook, like, except for the first chapter or two I read physically to get my head around the characters.
Well, this one that I have, I feel like I did make some progress in Anna Karenina, so I thought I would mention it. Although I feel like I was just telling my parents how I was like 2 books in, and they're like, "Oh, so you're like, what do you mean 2 books?" Like, yeah, there's 7 books. In the 7 books. So like, I feel like I made good progress, but I was like, I still got a long way to go. But yeah, I have been really enjoying it. I've been switching back and forth between like the physical copy and the audiobook. Which
Sorry, what is it?
Oh, Anna Karenina.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this one doesn't have it, does it? Yeah, so this is my first time reading this. This was, kind of like The Long Winter. Wow. It's like you're reading about snowy St. Petersburg and the Florida heat. So it was like perfect. Yeah, it's interesting. Apparently, Tolstoy wanted to write about, like kind of this fallen woman, but like from a very neutral perspective. And when I was starting it, I did expect to dislike Anna more from the get-go. And like, I don't like her, but I didn't. But he does do a good job at like portraying all the different characters. And yeah, I feel like even though I'm 2 books in, I'm still trying to figure out who I like and who I don't like. But Levin seems pretty good. But like the descriptions are so fun.
To say.
The ballroom,
just
parties and
yeah, no, Levin, he's one of my he's such a sweetie. I really like him.
Yes.
When I first met him at the very beginning, I was like, oh, this guy is too like wishy-washy. But then you see him back on his estate, and you're like, okay. Yeah. Oh yeah, Levin's story.
Yeah, we have some Levin fans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, Levin.
I know. Yeah, I've been meaning to read this for ages, so it's exciting to finally get started on it. But, yeah.
And I think it's good. You're going into autumn. That's like a very good autumnal kind of classic.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably good. It'll see me through into winter. Hopefully, I'll be able to finish
yes.
by the end.
Did you see Daryl's latest comment?
Yes.
Okay.
It's so interesting because a lot of Russian writers kind of had that theme going on. It seems like Tolstoy had the wholesome peasant too sometimes.
Yeah.
They had to give some good press to the peasant class.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, okay. So I guess the next one that I loved, and it was just finished it last week. It was so good. It's called The Wheel Spins. I think Ethel Lena White is the author. There was a Hitchcock movie adaptation called The Lady Vanishes. And there is this woman, she's traveling on a train. It's very crowded, but there's this one woman who she ends up sitting next to, who they have this whole conversation. They go to the dining car together, and then she goes to sleep. And when she wakes up, the passenger that she had the whole conversation with is gone. And she's asking everyone, where is she? And they're like, what are you talking about? Who is this other passenger? And she cannot find her. She's searching the entire train and she's not there. And she's like, something sinister is going on. So it was really sweet. Mitzi from the channel, Mitzi Reads and Writes, messaged me. It was like, do you own a copy of this? Yeah, I said, no, I don't. She said, I'm sending you a copy. And I was a little bit nervous because I do struggle when characters don't have freedom of movement. So if they're stuck in one place, I get restless, but this was such a wild ride, breakneck speed. And I was so compelled to find out how things were going to be resolved at the end. I was just very invested in the story. And what's really the lovely thing about reading modern classics is then there are all of these really poignant, just passing observations on humanity and just what it is like to journey through life. And yeah, it was a thrilling read.
That sounds so good.
Like a wheel spins.
My goodness.
Awesome.
What genre was that? Like modern classic? Is that the genre you would classify it as?
Yeah, I would also then more specific, like golden age mystery.
Golden age mystery. Okay, I was thinking it sounded mysterious.
Yes, and also for years I have not watched the 2013 The Lady Vanishes because I'm like, I'll read the book first. But I am so excited now. I can finally watch it, and hopefully it's not completely disappointing. Like it looks amazing. Yes.
Oh, awesome. Okay, is it my turn again?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. Okay, so my next book is If I Had Your Face by Frances Cha. Guys, another Korean book. So this one also set in South Korea. This one, though, is written by a woman who is from America but lived in Hong Kong and Seoul as well, or at least in South Korea as well. So she's kind of an internationally minded author. And I think that was really interesting because she has seen how different countries, I guess, how their beauty standards work. And so that's mainly what this book was about, was beauty standards, specifically in Seoul, that women are facing. And there was I felt like it was almost a journalistic take. It was pretty grim because the beauty standards are very strict, I would say. In South Korea, the heart-shaped face, light skin, and Western style eyes, the double eyelids. So women will get surgeries. Young women will be gifted surgeries for graduation presents, for plastic surgeries. They'll get their face shaved so that it's more heart-shaped. Like it's kind of crazy, the stuff she goes into in this book. I had no idea. So yeah, it's following, I think, 4 different women's perspectives and kind of the hardships they face. One of them is in the sex industry, and several of them are dealing with beauty standards, making it hard for them to work and stuff like that. And it's really about, I guess, how friendship kind of saves them, because all of the guys are just rotten in this book. So I would say it's kind of down on men, but the females are also very complex. Like one of them is a bully. So, I mean, she actually punches somebody in the book. So it's pretty dark, very modern, but also just very telling. And I feel like I was really getting eyes on a world that I had never seen or heard anything about. I didn't realize that prostitution was such a big deal in South Korea because I'd heard it was illegal there. But of course, if something's illegal, that doesn't mean it's not happening. So yeah, crazy stuff. But it also really was down on the sex industry in South Korea. It was talking about how it victimizes all of the workers, which I think is like a great message to get out there. The sex industry victimizes women. So I really appreciated that, because it really showed how that happens, how women go into it thinking that they're going to have a stable income finally. They get surgeries so that they look good, and then they get in debt and they never get out of debt. And then they're miserable and they're doing a job that sucks and is illegal. So that's kind of what it portrays.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, here's like
these are some heavy hitting books that you read.
Yeah.
I sometimes have enjoyed watching like Korean makeup tutorials, or like at salons, just because they're really relaxing and restful. Like, and it looks so like everything's so nice. But yeah, there was one YouTuber who I was watching, and she got this surgery to like have the inner corner of her eye look more flat. And I was just like, and like it was so red afterwards, and I felt so terrible. Like, why would you do that to your like healthy eye? Like no one's eye looks like that. Why would you like? I just like it was just mind boggling that people would. Yeah, that's really
Yeah,
sad.
exactly. I'm sad that they feel like they have to do that, you know, because nobody would go through that kind of a surgery unless they really felt like it was affecting their job prospects or like everybody's telling them to do it. I mean, I don't know. There's a lot of pressure, I think.
I don't feel like when I like watch Korean things, or even like when I watched BTS, and like sometimes like the members are like, "Oh, my face is so puffy," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" Like,
I know, right?
like the like idea of it is just so foreign. Like, I don't think I've ever noticed that my face was puffy or not puffy. Like, I feel like I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, maybe it's just me, but I feel like Americans, like some of these tiny gradations of like facial features, like we don't even see, like we don't even look for it. Like, and whereas in Korea, they're like obsessed with it.
Yeah, they know how to get the look for their photo shoots and like comebacks and stuff. I hope they don't live that way all the time, though.
Yeah.
All right. Well, okay. So for this next one, I think it's my turn. I don't think I'm going out of order, am I? So I was just talking about this in my August reading vlog that I posted. There was a book, which of course I now found, Linnets and Valerians by Elizabeth Goudge. I read like maybe a third of this, and then like in the first half of August, and then I was traveling, and so I didn't want to bring it with me, so I put it aside, and I've been looking for it ever since. And I couldn't find it in time for the vlog, because I was hoping to read from it in the vlog. And then just this morning, I posted a blog post with my quotations, and I couldn't find it. So it's just so absurd that here, like right before we started, I found it, and I was like, oh my gosh. I've been thinking, oh, well, instead of this, I'll mention a different Elizabeth Goudge book. So see, now I don't know which one to mention. I didn't really finish this one, but I did absolutely love it. I guess, well, here, I'll mention both of them, even that maybe that's putting me at 11 instead of 10. But this one is A Diary of Prayer by Elizabeth Goudge. And I put some quotations from this in it's over on Substack. And one of them, she collects the quotes by like not just by date but by topic. So for August there was prayers of kings and queens, prayers in old age for special graces. And I love this one from King Alfred. He says, "If thou hast a woe, tell it not to the weakling. Tell it to thy saddle bow and ride singing forth." Isn't that great? If you have a woe, just tell it to your saddle bow, ride singing forth. So I did love that one, but yeah, I can't wait to finish Linnets and Valerians. This is a children's book and just really cozy for young kids who moved in with their grandmother, but then ran away to their uncle. And I think there's going to be some magical things, which I haven't even quite gotten to yet, but just Goudge's writing is so gorgeous because it's cozy but also deep. Like there's so many things that make you stop and think, oh, that's just so beautiful. Yeah. So I'm sure I'll be talking about this more in upcoming vlogs. I didn't have time to sit down and find the quotations from it, but I
always think I should read that like close to Christmas. I feel like you could always use some Elizabeth Goudge around Christmas.
This is one of the few that I haven't read yet, because I've read almost all of Goudge. Many of them I've read multiple times, but there are a couple of like the children's ones that I just didn't have a copy of. So it's almost like I almost want to like space them out, you know. Although I'll always be able to reread them. But yeah, it's really good. Yes, I know. I was so annoyed. This like for the last 2 weeks, I've been looking everywhere, and then of course it was like in the most obvious place that I looked at 3 times. It was just hiding.
That's the worst.
That is how it is.
I wanted to read Island Magic because that was one of your book clubs, wasn't it? I still need to get a copy of it.
But I'm worried I've hyped it too much, because upon rereading it, I'm like, okay, I get why it might not be their favorite, but I still really like it.
Yeah, it's like I can understand some of the things I hear them say about Goudge. Like even in Linnets and Valerians, sometimes there's so much description. She's like, you enter the stable yard. Here's the door. There are 3 steps up there. There's a really charming bit about the bees. I love that. But like some of it was just like you didn't need that level of description.
Where would you guys say?
I will say. Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna ask, where would you guys say to start with Guge's adult work? Because I've read The Little White Horse for an reading like Emma vlog. I read it, but I haven't read any of her adults. Actually, I tried reading City of Bells, but there wasn't an audiobook, and I don't think she has a lot of audiobooks out for her books.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so. It's hard. It's some of them. It's hard to find just the print copies. I would say A City of Bells.
City of Bells. Okay.
I feel like that's like it's not some of the other, especially the historical ones, have just so much research and like that it makes them a little heavy to get through. But also Dean's Watch. But Kate, I'm really interested to hear what your recommendation is for sharing with you.
Actually, I am atypical in that. And the Dean's Watch, I did not enjoy it, and I can't even really explain what it is. It's like I felt like I was looking at all of the characters through like a fog. Like I felt like I wasn't understanding kind of what was happening. So I felt kind of dumb while I was reading it. I'm just like, I don't understand what's happening.
I feel like the Dean is the main character is like in kind of a funk, like he's towards the end of his life. Like it's just interesting that you say that because I feel like he's in a little bit of a fog. So maybe it's kind of that. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I could see that. And I also think the Elliott family trilogy, even though it might be intimidating to start a trilogy, that was where I started and I loved it. So.
Okay, thank you.
Elizabeth loves.
Oh, and isn't it? Don't you own like a cozy bookshop in A City of Bells?
Yes.
Oh, yes.
I know. I feel in some ways I feel like it's the perfect book. Like, which is like miraculous to say anything is the perfect book when it wasn't written by Jane Austen. But A City of Bells does have so much.
Yes. Oh,
thank you.
Okay, well, I will talk about fairy tale retelling that is the love of my life now. And his dog's name is Mixed Biscuits. That's so hard to say. I can't even say it.
Yes.
That's so cute.
Exile, which is a retelling of the Maid Maleen fairy tale where she's stuck in a tower. Her father basically says, you can marry this man that you don't love, or you can be exiled to this tower because I need you to be safe. And so she chooses exile in the tower because she's in love with someone else, and watches over months, watches this tower be constructed, and then has one servant who goes with her to stay in the tower. And it's the first in a trilogy, and the second one is out as well, called Wandering, and it is very much wandering. They're traveling around. The country has been ravaged by war, and so they're just trying to find out like where they can live safely. And then the final book is called Promise, and that is coming out in November, and it just completely blew me away. The thread of faith that is in it is written so beautifully, and so it often talks about God. The names for God is like the one, he who saves, he who upholds you, he who is faithful, and is just so beautifully written in there. And I loved the character arc because the leading lady, Maleen, she starts out incredibly selfish and just completely oblivious about anyone else's life experience. And so then this sort of mother figure that she has in the servant that gets locked in the tower with her. And I just find fairy tale retellings are a great way to see the stuff that people are really made of. And yes, so
Jari, I was going to ask the same question. Who's the author?
Is this an Owl's Nest series?
Sounds so good.
Is it what?
Is this an Owl's Nest series?
It is Rabbit Room Publishers. So it's an independent Christian publisher. I want to get her spelling right. It's Lauren G. Warnamendi, but it's spelled. Okay. Yeah, she said it's German, her last name. Yeah, the author is very lovely too. She's on Instagram and we have messaged them.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. And I love too, she's a homeschooling mom and she wrote this over a long period of time. Yeah. So I will say Wandering was definitely like the two towers of the series. Like I knew we were not going to have full resolution at the end. So I did really, really enjoy it, but I'm very much looking forward to seeing things tied up nicely at the end.
That sounds amazing. I rely on recommendations from friends to find Christian fiction because I can't seem to find ones myself that I really vibe with. So thank you.
You're welcome. Oh.
Except classics. I mean, classics are great. And so many of them are like, this is Christian fiction, you know?
Yeah.
That's why I love them.
I know, yeah.
Especially, okay, can we just do a quick side note about Charlotte Mary Young? So, Emma, Christy Lewis, and I, along with Daryl and Elizabeth in the chat, and maybe somebody else, we are starting a 1,000-page Charlotte Mary Young book. It's called The Pillars of the House, and there are 13 children in this family. And it's supposed to have beautiful sacramental imagery and symbolism throughout, and I am so here for it.
Oh my gosh. I might have to look this up. This sounds like it would be, perfect, like sort of
Emma. Oh,
yes.
It would be so exciting. We're reading it over September and October. And anyone in the chat, you are welcome to join. And we're going to have a Zoom meeting every other Tuesday night. So we can just be even more excited about it.
Pillars, what's the title of it again? Pillars of
the House.
Pillars
so
of
it is
the House
on
gang roll up.
It's on Project Gutenberg, I will say that. And it's in 2 volumes. Like I don't see it anywhere for just 1 volume.
Really gonna look this up.
I'm actually considering asking my Bible study if we can postpone on Tuesday nights on those meeting nights so I can join you. Because I really want to be there. So we'll see what happens.
Oh.
Joanna was in the chat. I could just ask Joanna. She's my most frequent studier with me.
Oh, yes. Or maybe you could meet every other Tuesday with the Bible study and the other in-between ones with us.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay.
It'll probably be fine. And we're almost finished with Daniel, too. So it's like at a good point where it wouldn't be a big deal if we postponed a little bit. But anyways.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my goodness. So I'm going through the Bible in a year. I'm a little bit behind, but I've really, over the past few weeks, I've really caught up. And this is my first time reading the Bible in completion. And it's rough times, man, when you get to the major prophets. Feels very deserved, but it's rough. So I am like pumped for Daniel.
Yes, it's such a great book.
Oh, I'm excited.
We've spent a whole month in chapters, like sometimes.
That's amazing.
It's so good. And Joanna is such a researcher. I don't know if you guys have ever, I don't know, Emma, do you know Joanna? I don't know. She is such a researcher. Like she is so fun to do Bible study with.
That's awesome. Yeah. So it's so fun, Emma, because Joanna is she was my college roommate.
I was going to say, I feel sure we crossed paths. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's just really cool that she's like doing book discussions. We're still in touch because of our bookish lives.
That's so awesome.
Yes.
Yeah.
And K-drama.
Yeah, I have this prayer subscription called Magnificat, and it has like daily readings. And I feel like often, especially in the Old Testament, there are readings from like the prophets that make me realize like, how have I not gone back and read through that whole book? Like I need to do that.
Yes. And it's so out of context. It's like, well, really, that seems kind of harsh. But then you're reading and it's like, and so who sacrificed his sons. And it's like,
yeah, exactly.
Oh, it is wicked, wicked stuff.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
I'm so sorry. I got us off on a rabbit trail, and I think
No.
Christy,
No, it was my
you were
fault.
next.
It was entirely my fault. Okay. Yeah, it's understandable. Getting this group talking about Bible study, that can happen. So my sixth book was Travels with Charlie by John Steinbeck. This
Oh.
was shockingly cozy. I kind of thought it might be because it's about John Steinbeck traveling America in his camper van called Rocinante. He names it Rocinante with his dog, a French poodle named Charlie. And it's as
Living the dream.
yes, honestly, it's so cozy. You really feel like he has an appreciation for like the common man in America, and like as he's getting older, he's like, I recognize that my fondness for the old ways is like rose colored glasses. I know that
Mm.
even as I get tired of, he complains about things about America, like how food can kind of taste the same because of the system we have now for growing like eggs and milk and stuff like that. He's like, it all
Ah.
tastes the same. But he's like, at the same time, I recognize that most housewives of the past didn't have a talent for cooking. And so their food wasn't great either. So he always is like, on one hand, I miss the delicious home baked bread. On the other hand, the store bought is better than most breads that women were making. So it's just interesting how he balances that. I was a little bit divided about it because the person who introduced it, I kind of skipped the introduction until after I'd read the book. But when I went back and read the introduction, the author was like, "Oh yeah, Steinbeck didn't like America at all. Like this was he was like complaining about America the whole way." But when I actually read Travels with Charlie, I felt like he really loved America, and he just had
Mm.
some sadness about changes that were happening, and he also had some worries about changes that were happening. And at the very end, he actually criticizes something, but not in like a preachy way. So I just felt like he balanced it so well. It was so charming. Even if he did
Mm.
have criticisms of America, it really came across as an appreciation of all the people in America and how different the people are. And yeah, I don't know. It was really interesting because he wrote this. It was like over half a century ago now that he wrote this. And he was like, I don't know what it's going to be like in 50 years. And I'm like, I do. This is crazy. It was really interesting.
That's
So
so
were some of those kind of predictions accurate?
I feel like some of it was. He said, for example, that the rich were leaving the cities and starting to stay in more rural areas. And I was like,
Oh wow.
that's kind of true. Like that's happened. But some of the things that he said, like he said basically our flavor is going to lose all localness, and food is going to be so boring. And I think that's not true because we have so many wonderful immigrant cuisines in America that make it. I mean, you can go get something boring like rice-a-roni from the store one night, and then the next night you can go get tteokbokki and burn your mouth out, if you want, from the Korean restaurant. So you can have whatever experience you're looking for culinary-wise. And I don't think he necessarily expected that. So it was interesting.
That's so interesting what you said about introductions, though, because that has been such my experience too. Like, so often I like skip it. Like occasionally, so rarely, you'll like find a really great introduction where the person is like really scholarly and knows what they were talking about, and like isn't trying to just shove their interpretation of the book on you. But most of them, I feel like it is there. It's like on their little power trip, this person you've never heard of who wants to tell you how to interpret this classic author, and it's just like, oh my gosh, I can't even right now.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Oh no, I guess Rainy needs some more flavor.
Oh.
Rainy, there's a drive-in pierogi place close to you.
Ooh.
I feel like these are all such good recommendations. My TBR is way too long.
Same, honestly.
It's a problem.
All right. So my next one I actually read at the very beginning of the summer. It is Man Alive. I did finish it, which I really, really enjoyed it. I feel like Chesterton and I, like, some of his stuff I really love, and some of it is just like, oh, like that's okay. Like, it's funny, the more popular ones, like The Man Who Was Thursday and the Father Brown Mysteries, like, I do like them, but like they don't really grab me. Whereas like Napoleon of Notting Hill and Poet and the Lunatics, which I feel like that one needs to be republished, because I first read an old library copy of it and I really want to get a copy of it, but I can never find like a nice one. But anyway, Man Alive, I was very glad was more like Poet and the Lunatics. Like, it was just so like very quirky and weird, but like just like appreciating the like small beauties, and like the quirkiness and weirdness like had a sort of roundabout point. I don't know, there's something about these types of stories that just feels like expansive. Like, it just leads you to kind of a greater view of like, normal life, and like, yeah, just so many beautiful beautiful and interesting like thoughts that just make you stop and think. Like, I marked so many. I feel like I can open any page. This one says, "You may reassure my friends, Inglewood. You see before you a person whom civilization has thoroughly tamed." Because that is kind of the plot of this, is that these characters are kind of coming back to life again. But yeah, I really liked Man Alive.
That title is so fabulous.
Yes.
It's fun how you see like how it ties in to the story too.
I feel like a lot of his titles are great. The Man Who Was Thursday. That was
The Poet and the Lunatics is one of my favorites too.
Yeah.
Oh, I can't remember it now, but there was a really endearing quote about Christmas that I heard from Chesterton. Something like, "Why wouldn't I be as excited as a kid is at Christmas? Christmas is wonderful."
I know, yes.
I'm butchering it, but I was like, oh, you don't take yourself too seriously. And I loved that.
Yeah. I feel like Chesterton and another, Evelyn Waugh, I read Brideshead Revisited for the first time this summer, and that is the very bottom of my list. I did not like it at all. I'm very, very But so it's fun to like pick up Man Alive, because I'm like Chesterton is my man. I can this Man Alive was like, yeah, like Brideshead Revisited felt dead, but this book is just like so thorough.
Oh yeah, Chesterton. He was wading through the stink of modernism, so he's he's fighting against it.
And yet keeps that childlike joy of like, yeah, Christmas is great. Like, yeah. Yes, that child.
Yeah. Oh, so great. And I love too, it always stuck with me hearing from C.S. Lewis's stepson, Douglas, that how kind he was to him and how he viewed being interrupted as just part of the writing process. So he said, I could just go in and ask him a question while he was writing, and he would set down his work and very patiently answer me. And that just, I think that really speaks to, I don't know how I would act if I was interrupted when I was doing important work.
Yes.
I feel bad. I keep like talking so long. So the
I just like props to all 27 of you still here with us. Like after an hour and a half, this is really impressive.
It's not just you, Kate.
It's all of us. Totally, it's all of us.
It's all of us.
So The Stokesley Secret by none other than Charlotte Mary Young. And this is a really short and sweet one about a homeschooling family. Although that was like totally not what they would have called it, but that is what they are. They have a tutor who teaches them at home, and it's just like a big party. You're there with a family, and it starts out, there's a needy member in the community, and they want to buy a pig for this person. So they're all like, oh, if we pool our allowance, this is how we can do it. and how you said, Emma, in The Heir of Redcliffe, how there's like the family patois, and it's the same way in The Stokely Secret. So the only flaw in it is that it was too short. So I just
Well, now you've got 1,000 pages of Charlotte Mary.
exactly. I'll be okay.
Oh, yeah, you're making me want to pick up another Charlotte Mary Young so much.
Well, I will, as
that's
soon as this video is done, I will forward you the email with all the dates and Zoom links.
Totally.
Yes, join us. Now I'm just getting more and more hyped for my first Young. Or Young.
Oh, great. Yeah, I think it's Young, even though it looks like Young.
Young.
It's weird.
Okay, thank you.
Yes.
Pronunciation.
No, it
Sometimes
makes
people
sense.
say Wodehouse, but I've always said Woodhouse, and I just can't bring myself to say Wodehouse, even if it's right. So like,
I think it's 1,000% Woodhouse. I've only heard a couple people say Woodhouse. Right? No, I think you're right.
That would make sense. Yeah. Sometimes when you hear the right pronunciation, it's like, yes, that's what it is. Nothing I came up with worked, but that one works.
okay, this is good. See your prize with on Team Woodhouse. So.
Yeah. He would know. He would. Okay. Boy, I just had such a hard-hitting list, apparently, this summer. I don't know. Most of them were not ones that were on my original list. That's just how it ended up.
Great.
So I started reading the Attack on Titan manga series again by Isayama Hajime, which is horror. I'm starting to wonder if I might be a horror girly. I've never really read much because I get nightmares and I'm kind of a scaredy cat. It doesn't take much to freak me out. This is why I don't watch a lot of TV, is because TV is usually like just too much for me. That's why I prefer books. But K-dramas is fine because it's usually chill. But I'm starting to wonder if maybe like horror fiction is for me, because it's often like really philosophical and there's a lot of symbolism, and I kind of like being able to be a little bit analytical with my reading. It's just more fun for me. It keeps me engaged. So Attack on Titan. So the word Titan in the titles, I did not realize. I thought Attack on Titan. I thought Titan was a place when I first started it. Titans are these giants that are attacking this like last remaining human settlement. And this human settlement is kind of like, I think it's Gondor that has all the walls in Lord of the Rings. Is that right?
Minas Tirith, like the
Minas Tirith.
7 levels.
Yes.
That's the Kingdom of Gondor, though. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So they have a million walls, to try and protect the people from these Titans. But in the first manga volume, the Titans breach the wall. So we have these like young teenagers who are trained in these like Spider-Man tactics to like swing and attack the Titans. And I guess that's where the title comes from, maybe. But yeah, it's really interesting. The action part isn't that interesting to me, but I think having this like really terrifying danger faced by the characters is really defining them. Yeah, exactly. It really is terrifying. Yeah. So I feel like the manga is more terrifying to me. I watched the first couple episodes of the anime a couple of years ago, and I handled that fine. I think because it moves too quickly for me to really, for things to soak in. That tends to happen with me in TV. It's too fast. But reading the manga, you have a chance to sit there and take in all the illustrations of like Titans eating people's heads and stuff. So it's quite intense.
You did have like an intense summer reading.
I really did. I don't know what's wrong with me. Flannery O'Connor is one of my favorite authors. I think, yeah, it's her fault.
She would have approved.
Well, let's say it is order being disturbed and
Cha-
then
chaos.
order being restored. Yes. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Because the series hooked me when suddenly something was restored to us that I thought was gone. And it was like a really big victorious moment. It was like the stakes feel really high here and they pulled through. So Tiffany and I are reading it, and Tiffany is also not a horror reader normally. So it's really good.
Rainy has your next read.
Honestly, the TBR you guys are giving me is really helpful. I need it. It's true.
All right. Let's see. Oh, so I did read Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare, which I felt like was perfect for the summer. It's just so summery, you know, the fairies and the absurd escapades in the forest glades, and it's such a unique one too, because like the action is kind of compressed into 4 acts, and then the whole 5th act is just the play within the play. So just a really fascinating one. And it was fun to like think of, because I'd been noticing that Emma, Jane Austen's Emma, mentions Midsummer Night's Dream twice. So I was trying to like track some similarities and stuff. But yeah, it was really fun. And Tudor timbre is a thing. I just found out about this recently. And then there's also Shakes timbre. So I feel like I'm definitely going to need to read some Shakespeare and maybe something from the Tudor time period in September. But Midsummer Night's Dream was a really fun summer Shakespeare.
Oh, I do love the play segment of that, and how the wall, and it's
so absurd,
fabulous.
It must have been fun for Shakespeare to write, because like it was also like the people in the audience like sort of mocking the playwrights and the actors. Like I bet Shakespeare heard people say stuff like that. It's such a fun one to see live too.
Oh, that's so cool.
I'm still stuck on Tudor timbre. This is extreme.
We have a celebrity in our midst.
That is fabulous. Okay, so then my next one is By the Pricking of My Thumbs. Speaking of Shakespeare, but it's Agatha Christie. And it is fabulous. It is a Tommy and Tuppence, and they are visiting Tommy's elderly aunt at her like nursing home, but it's fancier than a nursing home. And she doesn't like Tuppence. So Tuppence goes downstairs and is just reading on her own. And she's reading Macbeth. So yes, lots of Shakespeare in there. And this old woman starts talking to her, and she says, "Was it your child in the fireplace?" And she's like, "What are you talking about?" So things kick off from there, let me tell you.
Wow.
So I had tried The Secret Adversary, which is the first Tommy and Tuppence, and it was a little campy for me. And so that was just, I set it down. But then Mitzi, then Janelle, goodness. Our friend, our BookTube friend, Janelle, she passed away in the spring, and she had raved about this book, and then Mitzi was raving about it. And so I picked it up. It just felt like such a gift from Janelle, this book. And it was just such a wild ride, and one of my favorite Agatha Christie that I have read.
Wow. Is that saying a lot, or are you not really a Christie girly?
No, I definitely had some misses with her, but I really like a lot.
Okay.
There's like probably a dozen that I'm like, yes, I really love these.
Okay. Was that a Janelle-a-thon pick?
It was, yeah. Or maybe I read it right before. I can't remember. Yeah, Penny.
I feel like I have to read this.
Right?
Emma, I think you would really enjoy it. And especially it's a like good spooky one, but not too spooky because it's Agatha Christie. Or rather, there are some of hers that like I'm not brave enough. I've heard The Pale Horse is really, really creepy, but this is like just the right amount.
All right. It's my turn, right?
I think so.
Okay. I don't know why I have trouble keeping up. I think I'm just flipping pages all the time.
Yeah, Elizabeth, I can't say for sure. Rainey, don't read it alone in your house at night. Read it in broad daylight. It doesn't pass the alone at night test.
No.
Daytime reading.
All right. So next I had The Moorland Cottage by Elizabeth Gaskell. Yes, this was another of Kate's book club picks. A couple of these were. Yeah, maybe just that one and then Belton Estate. So thank you, Kate. Every time I read a Gaskell. Yeah. I mean, every time I read a Gaskell, I'm like, why am I just not reading Gaskell all the time? She is so amazing. And yes, Penny was there too. Yay, Penny. Yeah. I'm trying to even remember. So it's following I can't remember the names very well because it was just long enough ago. But it's following
Tom
a
and
girl.
Maggie.
Tom and Maggie, thank you. Yes. Who befriend their neighbors, especially Maggie really befriends their neighbors. And it's kind of about Maggie growing up and her tests of character as a result of her brother. And it's just, the writing I thought was so pristine. I mean, every time you read Elizabeth Gaskell, the writing is going to blow you away. And it was really short, but I feel like there was a lot packed into it, all relational. So it's kind of hard to describe without spoilers, but yeah. And I felt like there was like a reasonable amount of character development as well for such a short book. I just am always amazed by her works. It's kind of hard to describe. It's hard to describe why I loved it now, looking back, but I really loved it. I think that's what happens when the writing is just really beautiful. I'm like so wrapped up in like the writing and some of the other stuff. I just, whatever. It was the writing for me. It was the writing. So
He says, "Why are brothers such troublemakers?"
We had this conversation.
Yeah, lots of
Yes. I will second Christy that I think it's like the characters aren't necessarily the strongest, but it is just her writing is so good. And I'm usually like, I have to truly love the characters or truly be invested in kind of what's going to happen to them. In Wuthering Heights, I don't love the characters, but I'm invested. But her writing is so exquisite that I don't mind being less of a character reader when I read her books.
Yes, same. I would take her I would go anywhere she leads me.
Yes.
Even if it's not my genre normally.
I'm getting so much Victober inspiration.
Yes.
Okay, my next one I actually just finished, and this is another one for my book club, which we're going to discuss tomorrow. It's Personal Recollections of Joan of Arc by Mark Twain. Although it's very funny, in my Discord group, we've already been chatting a little bit, and some people DNF'd and like didn't feel like it was really for them. So I think it'll be a really fun discussion, which I could totally see where people were coming from, because Joan herself, like it's not told from her perspective. It's told from a perspective of her close friend who was like with her through all of it. And I think Twain was trying to really portray what she symbolized for France and like how she like really transcended, like she was really just an incredible symbolic figure as well as an individual. So I feel like the symbolism often and the saintliness like kind of took over say like just a more character, independent, like just her as an individual. So that was kind of missing. Like sometimes Joan herself felt a little bit distant. But I love that Mark Twain like dealt with it so like respectfully and sincerely. And there was a character called the Paladin who was like one of the kind of village yokels who like was so annoying and like kind of the worst and like a total braggart. But like Joan of Arc like saw something in him and like, you know, kind of promotes him and like transforms him almost, although not completely. But I felt like the Paladin was almost like Mark Twain himself. It felt like that he maybe drew from his own character for that. But yeah, just the way, like, just I felt like the whole story. I mean, it was fascinating from a sort of historical perspective because Twain did spend a long time researching it, and I wasn't aware of like just the whole series of trials and like the French didn't believe her, and then you know like just the whole sequence of events and the battles. So that was fascinating, but also just this idea that like this young girl had such a strength of faith and like her you know steadfastness to the will of God was so rock solid that like it galvanized an entire nation. Like I just thought that idea was so powerful, this idea that like one person's faith can actually spread, you know, like it kind of is contagious. So yeah, I thought it was really good.
Yay.
Oh yeah. It is definitely like the theme. Like the characters are there, but they're not like the main.
I'm really looking forward to hearing everybody's thoughts of that tomorrow. How did it compare to like other? Sorry, Kate. How did it compare to other Twain books that you read? Just out of curiosity.
Quite different. Definitely. And like I can see if you're coming into it looking for Twain's normal voice, like it's there. Like and like in some ways, like I think part of the reason I liked the Paladin and like the village goofballs the most is because that was Twain's like forte. That was when he was back in his usual kind of goofy, sarcastic like style. I thought he did fine though with the more elevated themes too. Like I liked those too. But yeah, it is definitely not kind of different. Like you can still see Twain in there, but it's yeah, on the whole it's different.
Okay, thanks. I was curious. What were you gonna say, Kate?
It would be surprising to have a sincere book from him. You know, like so that's cool. That he was
it is kind of crazy. Like I feel like it was sincere though, because yeah, you almost go into it and you're like, yeah, but is Mark Twain really like secretly holding out on you? But like no, it felt like he was really and seeing it through the eyes of the Paladin, it almost made more sense of like how it transformed Twain in the same way it transformed this kind of braggart from the town.
That is going to be a great discussion.
All right, let's see. Do we each have? Is it Kate or Christy?
I think it's Kate's,
I am done with my list now because the Belton Estate was on mine.
Oh, you can talk about it too if you want.
Oh, no, we covered it. I'm good.
Okay.
So this is your last one too, Christy? Is that right?
Maybe.
I know I've lost track of my list. I feel like I already threw in an extra.
You know what? Sorry. Okay, I do have one more. So it's called Not Exactly Love, and this is an Owl's Nest publisher book. It is just teeny, like 150 pages, I think, and it is just so stinking sweet and adorable. It's all about a middle school crush, and it just captures it so well, and how you act like a complete idiot when you have a crush on, like when it's your first crush. And you're constantly overanalyzing everything they're saying, every like little way they look at you, everything. And it's all set around Valentine's Day. So I think it's going to become an annual Valentine's Day read. It was just so sweet. And it's in diary format, and she loves Jane Austen and Shakespeare, and she's very endearing. So yes, loved it.
That sounds like such a fun Valentine's Day.
It was.
It does. It's nice to have like a sweet kind of romance thing for middle grade.
Yeah. And it didn't take itself too seriously. It wasn't at all like that's what bothers me. Like, let's just go there. Okay. Twilight. It's like such adult. it's such adult love. Okay, so many reasons, right? It's so abominably written. But also it's it's very adult things for a teenager to be going
It's
through
really
and
intense.
handling.
Kind of too intense.
Really intense.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the guy
appreciated
literally
this.
wants
It
to
was
suck
like,
her blood, so it's really not a healthy room.
new. Yes. Oh,
I
I love
really felt
Jay
like
Gatsby. That awkwardness of crushes is not limited to middle school hours.
I was
It's very
totally
true.
thinking
You
that
do-
when
you
you were
just act-
talking to me, Kate. I was like,
you act like a moron. As soon as you realize that you like someone, it's like you fumble on all your words, and it's like, what? It's the same person that you've known. What changed?
oh, I love that. Okay. Is it my turn again?
"Hey, here, Christy."
Mhm.
Right. Bleak House by Charles Dickens. I finished it.
Oh, way to go, Christy.
Thank you. And it was so good. It's definitely one of my favorites of the whole year. It takes a lot to get me through a book that long, to be honest. Sometimes I'll do it just because it's a read along, but in this case, I loved it the whole way through. So it was a bit of work though, sometimes. Like it's definitely too long, but I forgave it because I loved the writing. Like the writing was so good. So yeah, I think at one point you put it this way, Kate. You said it's like more literary and like less sensational in a lot of ways. There are sensational things that happen, but maybe because it's so long and it gives you so many characters, I don't know. I just felt like the whole time I was reading it, I was like, this is so well constructed. So we're following like a huge cast of characters who are all connected by a court case, and it's really criticizing the court system of the time because it was very slow and people weren't getting the remuneration they were hoping for because it was taking so long. And so it's very like critical of society, and but it was also like so funny, and the writing was really gorgeous, and there were so many characters that were just super fun even though we didn't need their entire backstories. They were still really fun. Yeah, I was definitely, it's my favorite Dickens that I've ever read ever. So good.
Wow.
Yay, Elizabeth.
All right, I guess just Christy and I have one last one each. The last one on my list was Journey to the River Sea. I think it's kind of ironic that originally I think you and I, Kate, both had picked this, but then at the end you and Christy both had a shared one, which I love. Yeah, I really did you read it at all, Kate?
I DNF'd.
Oh, that's too bad. You know, I had read A Company of Swans earlier in the year, and it was really fun because like she almost took the exact same plot and like put one as an adult novel and one as a kid's novel. And there were some things I didn't really like about the adult's novel, which I felt like were not problems in the kids' novel. So, but I also really just liked the setting and the idea of the Amazon as a river sea and like how enthralled the characters were by the landscape. And like, because at first this little girl doesn't really want to have to go live with her relatives in the Amazon. Or like, you know, her classmates are all like telling her about all the scary things, but she finds this line in a book talking about how, some people go to the Amazon expecting to find a green hell, but you get to decide whether or not your world is a heaven or a hell. And this little girl like is so fascinated by all the creatures and all the landscape that she definitely makes it into a heaven, even though there are like difficult things. And the governess, Miss Minton, 10 out of 10. She was just so fantastic. I thought it was so much fun.
Elizabeth has read everything.
I know.
Thank you for making us feel seen, Elizabeth. In all of our fangirling. Okay. Dang, I feel like I'm misplacing some of these, so if I get it wrong when I post on Instagram, you can just let me know. Okay, the last thing that I had was actually cozy. I actually had one cozy read.
Yay!
So this is a manga series called The Apothecary Diaries by Natsu Hyuga. And so it's kind of like Sherlockian, but we're following a young woman who is she used to work as an apothecary owner, and she ends up in the Chinese royal harem. She ends up working there as like a maid for a while, but then they discover that like she can tell, some of the royal harem are being poisoned by poison in their makeup, like lead poisoning. And she's able to like write a letter and be like, listen, this is why they're getting sick. You can save their lives. Just stop using this makeup. And so somebody tracks her down because they're like, who is this person who solved the mystery? And so it's really fun seeing her kind of know-how with like poisons. Like she's like such a poison fanatic. She'll just poison herself for fun because she likes it. The humor is great and so fun and cozy. And I'm on volume, I think 7 now. And it just added in a new genre because you just find out who one of the characters is. And it's like, it's not who you think it is. Like, it was like a total twist. So yeah, I feel like another genre is going to be added onto it. But currently it's a mystery manga, like a cozy mystery manga. So, but it might become a romance is what I'm kind of thinking might happen.
Yeah, I feel like I really would love to get into like a manga series, but I'm never like know which one to start with. Or when I visited the Japanese bookstore in New York City earlier this summer, I was like, I want to like buy one of these, but I don't know which one.
It's overwhelming the amount that's out there.
Reasoning for fun, that's great.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I was checking if the library had it, and they do. So I'm gonna check that for it tomorrow. Yeah.
I hope you love it. Tiffany's reading it too, and she loves it. So I feel justified.
Oh, so cool.
Yes.
Well, we made it through our list. Cheers to everyone who's here. Yeah, I feel like there were like 3 from my original list that I didn't end up reading, but it seems like you guys ended up veering off more from your original lists.
Yes,
I did read which Shakespeare play, King Lear, and I loved it. It destroyed me. I loved it. So of course after that I was not up for Hamlet. I think I'm good for like one Shakespeare a year, because even there's such a force, like emotional force to them, even in the comedies. And so it's also because I feel like a play is a very concentrated form of a novel. And so, yeah, it's a lot to take in. So it was amazing. It was really powerful. But it was a lot. But I think that was the only one on my original list. I was just DNFing things left and right. It wasn't even funny. But you know what? I had a great summer of writing. So I had a summer of reading. I don't apologize for it.
Yay.
I know, yeah.
That's kind of a challenge for you, I think, normally, right? Is finding things to read in summer.
Yes. Summer is usually terrible.
Yay.
Yes. But it wasn't this time.
Yay.
Yeah, thank you so much to everybody who stuck with us. We put Cymbeline to sleep. She's now, of course, now she's awake. As soon as I try to figure out, she's like, what's happening? I can attack you. Yeah, this was so much fun. And thank you for writing down the list, Christy. That was so nice of you. It's always hard to keep track. But yeah, I feel like I have so many things on my list now that I need to check out.
I'll highlight the ones on our old list that we ended up reading. I did read some of the things that were on the list, but I just didn't end up loving all of them or finishing all of them. So, because some of them are buddy reads. So, and my buddy readers just didn't finish it either. So we're like still going, you know? So.
All right. Well, I guess we will wrap things up since we've already been at it a full 2 hours. But thank you so much to everybody who joined us. And yeah, I feel like we're all friends here, honestly. Like, I don't need to be like, oh, go follow Christy and Kate, because like you all are.
You know.
Yes.
But BookTube is just such a lovely community. But yeah, it's super fun. Super fun Friday night.
Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out. Hope everybody has a great weekend.
Yes.
And yeah, time to start on our fall reading. So
yes.
All right. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.